Welcome, everybody, to another exciting edition of Baseball Now. I am, as always, your host, Scott, back for the first time this season of the new season. We got an interesting show for you today. Our lead analyst, Thomas, cannot be here today. So we have Greg Lindsay, our other full-time analyst, filling in with the weekly recap and look at the standings. We've got baseball news, as well as the power rankings and more. So let's dive on in and send it down to Georgia to Greg for his weekly recap.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's dive into week number 2 action with a weekly recap of the winning and losing teams in week number 2. Game number 1, we start out with the Dominators against the Ducks. Dominators scored 695 while the Ducks come in at a measly 518. Believe it or not, folks, this was a close game till Saturday and Sunday when the Dominators pulled away for a big rivalry win. Good win, Dominators. Game number 2, we move to the Express against the Wildcats. Express come in with 470, while the Wildcats come in at 416. This game actually came down to Sunday afternoon's matchup before the Express pulled away for a good victory. This was a husband-wife matchup. Good victory by the Express. We move to game number 3, where it was the Cubs 550 and the Chili Dogs 393. Well, folks, this game was basically a runaway blowout, however you want to say, from day one. The Cubs had control of this game the entire week. The Cubs did pick up their first victory of the season, though, moving to 1-1. And game number 4, we had the Big Dogs against the Bombers. Big Dogs scored 449, while the Bombers come in at 367. This was also a good matchup all week long. It was an up and down matchup, pretty much. And Big Dogs pulled away on the weekend for their first victory also of the year. So, with that being said, we're going to shift a little bit. I'm going to list the standings after week 2. We have the Dominators at 2-0, the Express at 2-0. We have the Ducks 1-1. We have the Bombers 1-1, the Cubs 1-1, Big Dogs 1-1. Wildcats come in at 0-2, and Chili Dogs are also at 0-2. All right, this will conclude the weekly recap and new standings after week number 2. So let's throw it back to Scotty in the Southeastern Sports Network studio. Thank you.
That was an interesting, hard fought at the start matchup that turned into a blowout at the end. For the Macon Chili Dogs, you had Kyle Tucker at 61 points. You had Rafael Devers at 37 and Bassett at 36. For the Cubs, you had Afonso at 59, Nathan Endovi at 53, and Swallenbach at 49. Let's go to another matchup. The Express versus the Wildcats, which going into Saturday and Sunday, that looked like it was going to be a photo finish. Unfortunately, on Sunday, the Express picked up steam and ran away with it. For the Wildcats, Sanchez had 41 points. Abrams had 38, as well as Francis with 34. For the Express, Singer had 59, Peralta had 38, and Flores had 34. Now let's go to the Demon Ducks versus the Dominators. That was a complete, utter blowout by the Dominators over the Ducks, the defending 2024 champions. For the Dominators, Ramirez had 50 points. Teoscar Hernandez had 43, and Crockett had 42. For the Ducks, Herrera had 45, King had 38, and Paul Skeens had 37, which was interesting. That was a very interesting matchup, which could end up being a playoff preview. Then you had Big Dogs versus the Bombers. For the Bombers, you had Reb at 33, O'Hop at 32, and Chapman at 24. O'Hop, who has hit a couple of home runs in a row, looking to carry his hot streak into this week. For the Big Dogs, Reeler was at 42, Trout was at 42, and Baez was at 38. So that was your week 2 top performers. Now we're going to head on over. All right, folks, let's look at our week ahead. For week number 3, you've got some interesting matchups this week. We have the Wildcats versus Big Dogs. Let's see if the Wildcats, who have fallen to 0-2 on the season, can they climb and scratch their way to a victory to go to one game under 500. We also got the Chili Dogs versus the Ducks. That's an interesting matchup I'm looking forward to. The Chili Dogs, who are also 0-2 and at the bottom of the league right now, take on the defending champions from last year. The defending champions came off of a week 1 victory, but then turned around and had a bad week 2 blow-up meltdown against the Dominators. So let's see if can the champions the Ducks reclaim their championship style of play, or are they falling into the abyss of the league? We also have the Express versus the Gatlinburg Cubs. The Gatlinburg Cubs, who the last time I can remember hasn't had a victory this early in the season in the last 3 or 4 years, find themselves 1-1 on the season. Or 1-2, excuse me, we're 1-2. No, yeah, 1-1. 1-1 on the season versus the 2-0 Express. This is kind of what we're looking at as a playoff preview, maybe, for this season. And rounding it out, we have got the Dominators facing the Warner Robin Bombers. The Bombers, who have fallen to 1-1, take on the 2-0 Georgia Dominators. Can Thomas continue his climb toward dominance? Or is he going to start to backpedal a little bit? Thomas has come out strong 2 weeks in a row. So there's plenty to look forward to this week. And of course, as always, Thomas will have the up-to-date midweek scores on the bullpen later this week. All right, folks, it's my favorite time of baseball now. It is the leaderboard or the power rankings brought to you by Tammy Cakes. This is the Tammy Cakes leaderboard for week number 2, going into week number 3. Rounding out the number 1 spot in the power rankings for the first time this season, the Georgia Dominators. Coming in at number 2 spot is the Atlanta Express. Coming in at number 3 is the Gatlinburg Cubs, which is the first time, and I don't remember when, the Gatlinburg Cubs are this high up in the power rankings. Hopefully this is a sign of things to come this year. Coming in at number 4 is the defending champs, the Demon Ducks, as they start to drop. Coming in at number 5 is Big Dog. Coming in at number 6 is the Warner Robin Bombers. And in a surprising twist, let's go back to last year. If we go back to last season, you remember the Wildcats got hot and was 4-0 to start the season before they came back and cooled off a little bit. And they were still a hot team all year long. They are unfortunately at the number 7 spot this week in the rankings at 0-2, followed by the Macon Chili Dogs as well as 0-2 in the 8th spot. Now that's your 1 through 8 leaderboard power rankings brought to you by Tammy Cakes. Now here in just a... All right, folks, let's go ahead and take this time to thank some of our sponsors for today's show. Let's thank East Tennessee Media, our parent company, as well as Tammy Cakes down in Locust Grove, Georgia, and the Arlene Lindsay Memory Movie Museum up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, from the famous movie actor Arlene Lindsay. Those 3 have been our main sponsors for the last 4 or 5 years. And as always, we're looking forward and looking for more sponsors of the network and the show. Also, folks, please remember to take that time to hit that subscribe button and like button and follow us on social media on our TikTok and Facebook, Southeastern Sports Network, as well as East Tennessee Media on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok as well. I'm your host, Scott. Greg was on earlier. We hope everybody has a wonderful day. And we get ready to see you next week, as well as tune in later this week for the bullpen with Thomas.